Hey guys, what's up? It is week 62. I have quite a bit here for you. First, I want to open this up with, I want to let you guys know what's happening with the Hornet's Disciple and the Scars She Left. This was going to be like the meta sequel to the Hornet's Sting and the Hell It's Caused by Dustin Mills. He ran to Indiegogo, and there were some problems. It went through, it was successful, everything was fine. And I guess Indiegogo implemented a new, some sort of new policy that anything with nudity or gratuitous like nudity or anything like that in the movie will no longer be allowed to be on Indiegogo. Kind of funny they call themselves Indiegogo. Yeah, okay. But regardless, it was effective. It started in May, and it took effect after the campaign ended. So everybody basically was refunded if they donated. That kind of left Dustin in a pickle because he had investors and he can no longer pay them back. What's happening now is obviously he's running a Kickstarter now that makes it look really bad. You know, it just doesn't. I mean, it probably a couple people probably are blaming Dustin for it, but it's completely Indiegogo's problem. And I guess they'll probably implement a lot of things in the future. And so a lot of people just be warned that if you're going to have gratuitous nudity or stuff like that, then you can't put your movie on Indiegogo without a chance of them taking it down. And a company they can do what they want, but the problem is they implemented that policy after the thing was over and just held the money and kind of dicked him around and didn't let him know what was going on because they didn't have the guts to tell him. And that's kind of crappy, to be honest. I mean, be blunt, and they okayed the campaign in the beginning. So there's actually a link below that explains it much better than me, and with more details and whatnot. There probably will be another Indiegogo after the Slumber Party Slaughterhouse or campaign is over. So if you really want to check that movie out, then it is eventually going to be released, but it is put back on the back burner until that other campaign is done. That's unfortunate, though, but, Dustin's had a lot of roadblocks lately, with the, there was a lot of problems with the, her name was Torment 2 campaign, and then this, it's the only thing, he didn't need that, and it's kind of like really lame of Indiegogo to implement that after, it was already over, and then they implement the policy, and then they go back and, retroactively go back and do that. Regardless, that's what's going on with the Hornet's Disciple and the Scars She Left. Very unfortunate. But let's hop into the reviews. The first one I'll be reviewing for you is Doom Asylum from Arrow. Yes. I can't believe that Doom Asylum from Arrow got an Arrow release. I remember first seeing this movie when the DVD was released by Code Red, and I had never seen it. It was a slasher movie I had never seen, and me and my friend were super excited to check it out. We got it. We thought the cover looked awesome, the original cover. It'll probably pop up somewhere on the screen. But, yeah, it had this character on the front who looked like a Freddy Krueger knockoff, and we just thought it was the funniest thing ever. We were probably like 20 or so. So we put it in, and we were horribly disappointed. We didn't really know what to make of this movie. Doom Asylum is an oddity, late 80s slasher movie, and I would have guessed the thing, just from memory, I would have guessed that thing's got to be shot on video, but it's not. It's shot on film, and they remastered it on film. Arrow did a great job with this movie, but when I first saw it, I didn't really know what it was, and I still don't know what the hell it is. Doom Asylum is goofy, it's silly, it's low budget, it's complete nonsense. Has a couple familiar faces in here. The star of Frankenhooker is in here, and one of the ladies from Psychos in Love and a bunch of other B movies pops up in here, and Kristen Davis from Sex and the City. So there's that going for it. It has a couple recognizable faces. Basically, the plot is a guy gets in a car accident, he loses his fiance, he gets all mangled, he kind of comes back from the dead somewhat on the coroner's table, and he ends up hiding out in this asylum. 10 years later, these kids show up to the asylum and they start getting picked off. There's a punk band there. They're really obnoxious. Everybody is these weird characters. They're over the top. It's self-aware, but at times it's just so weird and bananas that you don't know if they're trying to be stupid or trying to be ridiculous and almost trying to fail, or they actually are failing. That's what we have going on with this movie. It has practical effects. Of course, it was made in the late 80s, so there's that going for it, and even bad practical effects are fun practical effects sometimes. I will say that some of the effects are pretty good, some of the effects are pretty lousy, some are just really poor. Stuff like somebody gets their head crushed with forceps, not crushed, I should say, they put blood on the forceps, looks really cheesy. But yeah, that's Doom Asylum. There's 2 commentaries on here. One with I believe it was Hysteria Continues, the slasher podcast. That one's fun. They poke fun at the movie a little bit. And one was with some of the people who actually made the film. The original commentary I don't think's on here with the director. I don't think it is. But there's some interviews on here with some of the actresses. It was really fun to watch, and and it was nice to hear that commentary that realized that this movie is sort of goofy, and it's supposed to be. Because when I originally watched it, I just thought it was a massive failure, but now I understand that it's supposed to be campy. It's supposed to be campy, but is it really campy because they're trying to be campy on purpose? So it's kind of like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes kind of deal, but it's also trying to be, it's just an oddity. Like, it doesn't really know its tone, and the killer has a bunch of dumb one-liners. They're really bad. I mean, they're so bad you don't even roll your eyes. You kind of just veg out and stare at the screen like, really? There's some funny moments. Like I said, it's complete nonsensical. It's strange movie, and you'll either love it or you'll hate it. I don't, and then I'm gonna say that and then say I don't really know how I feel about it, but I think the more you watch it, the more you like it. But you know it's crap. Because it's not good. It's not good at all. It's just ridiculously stupid. I can't believe it's on Blu-ray, but it looks really good. There is some inserts that are, like standard def, just a couple here and there, but it is in beautiful widescreen for the most part, and it looks really good. There's moments where I did laugh, and it is short, and I enjoyed the commentaries more than the movie itself. And there's an interview with the special effects artist on here, and he went on to do a lot of big things, and he's talking about, he's like, I didn't even know what I was doing, and sometimes it shows, sometimes he surprises you with some good effects, but it is Doom Asylum. It's just one of the ones you gotta have if you like slashers, you like offbeat, really silly movies, because it's exactly that.
And he said Marx's prose would make Hemingway turn over in his grave.
Her death scene reminds me of one from Jaysen X, except instead of acid, there's liquid nitrogen.
Driving through the night, I would literally sleep in cars while I would get to the next set at the next morning.
The film didn't take itself too seriously, and I think that's part of the appeal.
We're using a real drill bit. You see where I'm going here, all right? And we're putting this against the guy's forehead.
I respect your First Amendment right to the political beliefs of your choice, but I don't necessarily agree.
Okay, guys, the next one here is Monster X. Didn't know much about this. This is a horror anthology released by MVD. Then I put it in, I was like, I don't know what to expect. And I didn't even know it was an anthology until basically it started. It jumped right into a story here. This is... It starts out in a movie theater, and it's basically a couple on one of their first dates going to check out an all-night horror-thon. The guy's a big horror fan, the girl's not. We've seen that setup before. What's funny is... I actually like the setup in this one. It's pretty fun. I like the theater location. It looks pretty good. But we get into it. We start watching the movies, and it's obvious they're not directed by the same director. I know, or the same filmmakers. They're just kind of a bunch of shorts thrown in a movie with a wraparound. And it kind of cuts it in here and there okay. But it doesn't perfectly work. I like the setup doing it this way much better than just finding a VHS tape and putting it in and be like, oh, let's watch some tapes, because that's like 30 anthologies now after VHS. But Monster X, like I said, the wraparound is a pretty cool setup. And we have 3 or 4 stories in here. 3 of them come to mind right away. And that's why I always have a problem with these anthologies. I'll watch them and then I won't remember all the stories off the top of my head. And if I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's only 3. But if there's 4, I'm a moron. So, we have the first one is a Banshee story, and this is the best of the bunch. It's actually creepy. I like that it has this mythology with the Banshee in here. It seems like they did some research, and they create this kind of old folk, scary story about a woman and her husband who are kind of at the mercy of this Banshee. And it's genuinely creepy, actually. And there's a detective who gets involved, and the way they do the music, the way they keep the creature in the background and the shadows, they just do a good job with it. So it's actually a spooky, kind of scary, nice little story that started the anthology out pretty good. The next one is a werewolf story, which is from another anthology I've already seen, which I can't remember exactly what it is, and it was probably one of the better ones of that one. This one is tongue in the cheek. It's silly, and it works. It's kind of cute. I like the werewolves. That's pretty much it. I'm not going to review it a second time. I don't even remember the anthology that it was from, but I know that it was, again, shoehorned in there. But it deserves to be watched, and it's, like I said, cutesy and fun. These kids sneak into this theater, and there is some sort of, there's something wrong with the people in there, and you'll pretty much know immediately what's going on. But there's a twist, of course, similar to The Secret from Season 2 of Tales from the Crypt. And then we cut back to, like, the anthology storyline, and then they, like, kind of tie in, like, the creature from that short, and they keep doing that, and I kind of like that. That's effective, but the effects in the wraparound are compared to that short are not as good, and it's just like, that's pretty corny looking. But the last one I remember is a vampire story, and this one, again, is by, I believe, the same director of the Banshee story, and this one feels a lot like a Tales from the Crypt story. This one is also fairly well made and has a nice twist. It's serviceable. This whole thing is pretty decent, pretty fun. I've seen a lot worse ways to waste an evening than watching this. It's pretty short, and it's not annoying. It's not terrible. And, of course, there's the last story involves a babysitter and a little kid, and this one's okay. This is probably my least favorite of the bunch, but it involves a kid who has this weird problem with monsters in there. It's not perfect. It's kind of just okay. But in Monster X, if you have a few bucks to spare, you want to check it out, you like anthologies, you want to see some shorts, basically it's some shorts thrown together, it's okay. I kind of enjoyed it. No complaints. It's pleasantly surprised. It was a pleasant surprise, We have the next one here, 24 by 36, and this is basically a documentary about the fandom of poster collecting. The movie starts out in the beginning with kind of showing the history of posters, and that's pretty cool. They show a lot of, how posters came to be and how the artist originally couldn't sign them, and, how much a lot of these old posters that are worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars are just being found in walls, basically, as insulation, because at the time, no one really knew they were going to be worth anything. And that's pretty much the first 20 minutes of the movie. Artists talking about, the guys who got their start, the best artists there were around at the time, and a bunch of people, and it jumps from decade decade to decade, and then at times we get to the present time, and then they show how the art changed to the floating heads and everything, and they show a lot of posters from the modern era, and they're just so bad. And then they talk about screen printing and how everything's changing the landscape, and all these collectors, and they have people in there, they have artists, they have collectors. They start to have discussions about whether it's okay to take something that you don't have a copyright on and start drawing it and selling it as prints. And there's artists that agree with it, that disagree with it. There's some in the middle. All this stuff is interesting, and it's a nice documentary. I love seeing a lot of the posters in here, and a lot of the modern poster versions of movies that I grew up loving, and a lot of the ones like the late 90s and 2000s getting the good nice Mondo posters that they deserve. And it's also there's fans worried about the bubble bursting, that they're not going to get any more posters if the second market prices keep going up and everybody gets oversaturated with things, and then pretty much at the end of the day it's just over. It's an interesting doc if you like posters, if you like fandom, I'm interested in that stuff, kind of like the VHS documentaries that came out a while ago. It reminds me a lot of those. I've never been a poster collector because I don't need to be collecting anything else. As you can tell, I have a sickness, as all collectors do. But one sickness will put you in the poorhouse or kill you, and this one's a little bit healthier than a lot of them out there. But 24 by 36, it's fun, it's cool, it's interesting. I enjoyed it quite a bit, actually. It's just a great fun watch. It's a very easy watch too.
Well, when I was a kid, the first connection you would have with a movie is seeing the poster. But I had a neighborhood theater, and when I would go to the movies, they would have a hall where they had 6 or 7 posters for pictures that were coming. And that's how you could gauge what you were going to do with the next couple of months of your life.
Prior to about 1965, they never really gave the artists credit for their work. That said, people now want the original release poster for a Bob Peak film or a Struzan film.
Movie poster art is revered now. The ironic thing is that as much as we love it, it's an art that is pretty much dead. The studios aren't hiring illustrators anymore. And it's sad. The fans have taken it upon themselves to create magic.
That's incredible.
So I think that what we're doing is going to impact commercial films.
And it gives me hope.
It's purely a love thing.
Okay, guys, the next one here is from Criterion. This is a DVD. I've had it for years and never watched it. I finally popped it in and took the plunge with Man Bites Dog. I believe this is 1992. I just looked at the back. I knew it was early 90s. And you know what I'm going to say about Man Bites Dog? This is a crazy movie. This predates August Underground. This predates Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. It predates Dirty Cop, No Donut. And it's a lot like those movies. It predates them for sure. It's like they decided to make a feature-length version of the scene in Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer with Tom Tolles and Michael Rooker when they invade the house. They made a full-length version of that, but in a dark comedic tone. I've heard a lot of people talk about this for years. This is, I believe, a Belgium or a French film at Belgium, but it's by 3 filmmakers. All of them didn't go on to do too many things, except the lead actor in here. He actually went on to do quite a bit. He's also a filmmaker. The directors and the lead actors all play in the movie. It's very strange. It's a low-budget movie about low-budget filmmaking, as they explained when they were being interviewed, so they could get away with looking low-budget. There's this documentary crew that decided to make a documentary about this killer, this criminal, this serial killer, and he's basically funding the movie himself. He is a sociopath. He's obnoxious. He's loud. He never stops talking, and he's a hypocritical monster. Of course, he's a crazy crazed killer. A lot of his family has no clue that he is this monster, and some of his friends, they have to understand his sickness, but they basically follow him around while he does his exploits. He steals money. He's mostly a criminal that likes to kill and take money and do things, but he also is somebody that he obviously enjoys the killing and he enjoys the thrill, and basically what he does is he gets all these filmmakers involved with his murderous crime, and they basically become assets, or I mean, like, not, what is it, assets in his murders. Yes, they become part of the murders as it goes on. And is it a statement about the more you watch these movies, the more you become involved with them and whatnot? I don't know, but the movie is very strange. It feels, very guerrilla at times when they're running through things. It's black and white. There's some really brilliant, funny moments. A lot of them are on this lead guy's performance. He's such a monster. There's some gratuitous stuff in here too. Some really uncomfortable scenes involving a rape scene and all sorts of things here. And that's basically when it comes to a full, the filmmakers had like turn that page, and they're just as bad as the killer, if not worse at that point. There's quite a bit funny moments in here. There's a jab at shot on video in here, which is lovely, with the filmmakers coming across another set of filmmakers. He says, the killer says, "Look at this big camera," talking about the other film crew they meet, and he says, "We don't want that, that's video," and he just throws it on the ground. "What are we on? Film," and he throws theirs on the ground. But I love that kind of scene. And there's a place where he dumps the bodies, that they keep doing it and it keeps coming back, and that scene is just the way they do it, the way they keep coming back to it, almost becomes comical as it is disgusting. It's a very very good movie, and I'd love to see it again. This is one that I will revisit, and I think it is very unique, to be honest. And the way they cut in some of the shots, they'll just cut in randomly. He'll be talking and there'll be a scene, and then they'll just cut him in, like him like shooting like a dozen different people at different times and whatnot. And that stuff is just really kind of jarring, to be honest, and it's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's really well made. It's really well acted, and it's equal parts disturbing as it is funny. I laughed at times and I said, "Oh geez, oh my God, right there, that's pretty rough." But it's really good, and I like it. I mean, it feels raw. It feels, interesting. It's just good stuff, and and it predates so much stuff that I guarantee had to be inspired by it, or maybe it was just, and like I guarantee, like, you know what I mean? It's unique and is ahead of its time, and I like to say, I waited years because I was hoping for a Blu-ray. There's no English-friendly Blu-ray out there, but this Criterion DVD, it looks good. I mean, it is shot in like a guerrilla kind of cheap style, so it doesn't look perfect. It's grainy, as it's supposed to be. But there's an interview with the directors, about 8 minutes. There's one of their short films on here as well, and there's a trailer. There's not much. It's kind of a weak Criterion release, to be honest, but if you have Filmstruck, it's on there as well. But I know a lot of people have talked about it. I'm pretty sure Pure Cinema Podcast has talked about it. I'm pretty sure Rob Galuzzo from Shockwaves Podcast has talked about it. I've heard about it for years, and like I said, I've always wanted to see it, but really good stuff. Highly recommended for people that like stuff like, even Natural Born Killers, or what is it, like I said, August Underground. It predates these movies, and I think it's important and very cool.
Tu vois, il y a un barème quand tu le laisses d'un corps, c'est-à-dire tu fais 3 fois son poids, normalement. Un homme moyen, comme cette victime-ci, c'est 3 fois son poids. Mais sinon, par exemple, ça change, hein. Tu as pour les enfants ou pour les nains, ça change. Pour un enfant, il est plus léger, un enfant, hein. C'est 2 fois son poids. C'est 4 fois son poids. Comment? Non, parfois, par exemple, pour les nains, c'est 1 fois son poids. C'est beaucoup plus lourd, hein. Les os sont beaucoup plus lourds chez un nain, donc c'est 1 fois le poids. Une vieille dame, par exemple, ou un vieil homme, 5 fois le poids. Les os sont poreux déjà, hein. L'amour laisse comme une traînée de soufre derrière lui, comme une odeur qui traîne, et que malgré tout, dès que tu rencontres quelqu'un, tu sens, un peu comme quand tu vas pisser et que tu sens tes doigts. Zoom sur ta machine. Tu vois, généralement, au début de mois, je me paye un petit facture, hein. Je me lève le matin, et je prends en matinée pour récolter les pensions. Ce qui me permet, par la même occasion, tu vois, de repérer les vieux qui ont de l'argent, hein. Nous sommes une équipe de télévision, oui, et nous effectuons un reportage sur les vieilles personnes et la solitude, oui, dans les grandes cités. Oui. Auriez-vous l'obligeance de répondre à quelques questions, s'il vous plaît?
Je veux bien.
T'as été un peu ta lumière. Non, coupe ça, imbécile.
The next one here I'm going to review was sent over by the lead actor from it. He basically contacted me and asked me if I wanted to review it, and he sent the producer sent me a screener. It's Russell Banks. It's Russell Jeffrey Banks is the lead actor in this movie, and it's Who's Watching Oliver. This is a brand new movie from 2018. Right now, it is on like Vudu and everything like that. If you want to check it out on Vudu and iTunes and stuff. So yeah, this is a 2018 serial killer film, and I hadn't heard much about it. I believe it is a British film. And right off the bat, it was giving me the movie Tony vibes. You ever seen Tony? Anybody out there? It's a British serial killer movie that is like darkly comedic, and it stars in a very, very awkward character. Oliver is a very, very awkward character. We have this guy who has mommy issues. His mom basically makes him pick up prostitutes, sodomize them, and kill them, and he doesn't want to do it. She's on a webcam pretty much the whole time, yelling at him and telling him what to do. And that's pretty much the entire movie. You know what's going to happen. It's the typical thing where he ends up meeting a girl that his mother doesn't approve of. Of course, she doesn't approve of anything. And there's a, kind of a power struggle between the computer mom and the girlfriend. The girlfriend has a damaged past too, and that's pretty much the plot. There is some nifty camera work in the beginning, like when he's going through the amusement park and stuff. That's pretty cool. And there's some graphic murders in here, and there's a nice montage scene at the end, which kind of came out of left field. It was a little bit more violent than the rest of the film, and I was kind of surprised. The stuff the mother says is really, really gross and really intense, and it makes you very uncomfortable. When I was watching it, I was thinking, oh man, I knew the person who I lived with. I was like, they're hearing this, they're thinking. I'm like, I don't know what they're thinking right now. But I think the lead is an interesting performance. It's a strange performance. He keeps his jaw like this, and he's just really weird and strange, and it's a dedicated performance for sure. I think that his performance is the best in the film. I think the mother, and I don't like to do this typically because I know independent acting and stuff, and I know that it doesn't feel particularly good to be singled out in a movie saying you were poor in it, because I've been there and somebody, but it just got to be honest. I think that the mother character is a little weak in it, but I mean this could be due to having to act in a webcam. She's probably just memorized her lines and went for it and didn't have much interaction. And I can understand that being a little difficult, and maybe she just wasn't good with the dialogue, but I thought that performance was a little weak, and it kind of hurt the film for me. I think if that performance would have been a little bit stronger. And for the most part, it is kind of a character study about a killer, and, it's pretty typical in that aspect. We've seen this kind of stuff before. It's not horrible. It's not great to me either, but I would check out the filmmaker's other movies, and I would be interested to see. I mean, it's a good role for the lead, to showcase some of his talents and range, being a weirdo, but. It's not a perfect movie, and it's tonally it's very strange because at times it's darkly comedic, but a lot of times the murders are really graphic, and it's just gross at the same time. The first 10 minutes I was like, oh, this is pretty funny, and then the first murder happened and I was like, this isn't funny at all. I don't know what this is going for, to be honest. And like I'm trying to think of some other British serial killer movies that remind me, Mom and Dad maybe, but I think that this one falls short of Tony and probably Mom and Dad, but it is an interesting movie if you like serial killer movies. I'm coming like at the mid-range on this one, worth maybe a rental or watching the trailer and seeing if you'll enjoy it, but I appreciate them sending it over for me to check out. That's Who's Watching Oliver.
You did this!
What does it feel like to kill someone?
Okay, the next one here is from Kino Lorber. This is what, 68? Yeah, this is the year before the Wild Bunch for William Holden. This is the Devil's Brigade. Yep, pretty cool. Has a nice little cast in there. You guys will recognize Richard Jekyll, William Holden. Who else pops up in here? Cliff Robertson from the Great Northfield, Minnesota raid, and Malone, which I recently reviewed. But yeah, the Devil's Brigade. A guy recommended this to me at work, and I had seen it already. I had bought it already, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna finally check this one out. This is based on a true story about a group of American misfit soldiers that no one wanted, criminals, derelicts, stuff like that, and a group of the best Canadian soldiers, and they basically are mixed together to create this crack force team. They go through grueling training together, very similar to Dirty Dozen, to be honest, that came the year previous, where these guys hate each other's guts at first. They have to work together, and eventually they become a mean, lean fighting machine. A great team that respects each other, and they go on missions. Most of the movie is them learning to work together and training, and it plays for laughs a lot of the times, similar to the Dirty Dozen. And at the end of the movie, there's a couple big missions that go on, and you see a lot of the characters get developed and a lot of relationships, and then you see them get killed. And that works dramatically for sure. William Holden's good in it, as he always is, especially when he butts heads with guys like Carol O'Connor, who's plays a general in here, and others. Claude Ankins is also really fun in this movie. He plays this big burly guy who always has it out for this guy called Peacock, who's also a pretty big guy on the Canadian side. Their relationship's the best in the movie, to be honest. Richard Jekyll, I love. All these guys look way too old to be in the military, to be honest, at that young age, but that doesn't ever really bother me. Andrew Prine is in this as well. Kind of a weird role for him, a little bit shaky, to be honest. Not his finest role, I don't think, but it also, Andrew Prine and Richard Jekyll went on to do Grizzly together after this. Richard Jekyll in this movie gives a good performance as a, acrobatic kind of guy who climbs the mountain. The final, battle in here requires this team to go through a grueling climb this mountain, and get the drop on these Nazi soldiers. And the action stuff is pretty solid. The comedic stuff in the beginning is pretty solid, and this is like kind of a tone with these movies. Like I just was saying, like tonally, like how Who's Watching Oliver didn't really work. Well, the Devil's Brigade is the tone from the 60s. They would kind of do this, even in like the Wild Bunch. They would have moments of comedy between the guys, and this kind of like, it makes you like characters. It's an easy device to enjoy characters, to be honest. If you make them like have laughs together, the audience laughs with them, they like them, and then they watch them die, and it's an easy dramatic piece. But I actually enjoy this one. It reminds me of a lot, like the Dirty Dozen or something. A lesser Dirty Dozen, but it's a good movie. There's a commentary on here, and it is a true story, so I like that too. I don't know how accurate it is, but it's good stuff. I think that if you like along the lines of the Dirty Dozen and the Great Escape and stuff like that, you'll really dig the Devil's Brigade.
Just when you think you've seen it all, along comes the Devil's Brigade. Action with a devil edge, 'cause it really happened.
Welcome to the 1st Special Service Force. You Canadians, I'm told, are the hand-picked best of the best trained army in the world. You Americans, for the most part, have an entirely different reputation. I've been supplied with full details on your military and moral delinquency, and I couldn't care less.
The Devil's Brigade, the spit and the polish.
Peacock!
Peacock? Peacock? The brass-knuckled Americans. The brass-buttoned Canadians. What they did to each other was nothing compared to what they would do to the enemy.
You have a specific complaint, Major?
Yes, sir, I sure as hell do. One of those stupid jerks out there broke into my room and stole my rattlesnake. You don't need all that space, do you? Even with that enormous fat behind of yours? The human body has numerous vulnerable points. The elbow, the ribs, the neck.
What I don't understand is, sir, why are you pitting them against each other?
I have less than 4 months left to convert this misbegotten outfit into the Army's finest combat unit.
You know, that fraternizing with the Canucks, that comes under the heading of treason.
Ladies associate with gentlemen, not baboons.
A hellish band of men that hated each other more than the enemy, until they met the enemy.
Mount La Defensa. It's on the road to Rome, flanked all around by mountains. Mount La Defensa is the key point in this entire sector. We're trying for 3 weeks to take it away from the Germans. We've had total failure. And we've had heavy casualties. But we gotta get it.
A band of men the enemy soon called the Devil's Brigade.
Medic! Medic!
The Devil's Brigade. The most unusual bunch of men ever thrown together to win a war. The Devil's Brigade. William Holden, Cliff Robertson, Vince Edwards, Michael Rennie, Dana Andrews, Gretchen Weiler, Andrew Prime, Claude Akins, Carol O'Connor, Richard Jekyll, Jack Watson, Paul Horning, Gene Fulmer. Just when you think you've seen it all, along comes the Devil's Brigade.
Okay, now it's time for the VHS Voyage. And I did have a Betamax of this, but I didn't feel like digging it out. But here's the bootleg, the Ladies Club. Yeah, this was made, what was this, 87. And it looks a little, it feels a little older than 87, to be honest. But the Ladies Club, this was based on a book. This movie stars... I don't know, but guess who's in it? I can't think of any of the major stars. They don't really stick out. Bruce Davidson, duh. That's one. But he's a side character. And Nicholas Worth in here as well. There's a lot of familiar faces, but none of them stand out except like the kind of like the B-roll characters in this movie. And I'm a big into the character actors. Bruce Davidson's in here. Nicholas Worth's in here. I love the plot of this movie. I love revenge films. And this one is just one of these kind of lost revenge films that I feel like is solid, and it doesn't get much recognition. But what happens here is it's a group of women who band together after being raped or losing a loved one due to rape and murder, and they create the Ladies Club. They come from all walks of life, police officers, doctors, lawyers, whatever it is, and so they basically work together and they decide to grab a 2-time, 3-time career rapist, lure them in, drug them, and castrate them, and release them. So it becomes kind of this vigilante, sensation on television that these women are grabbing rapists and basically castrating them. To be honest, I love that concept. I love this kind of stuff, to be honest. And it's nice to actually see the women getting the revenge on the rapist this time around. A lot of times it's, you see a lot of these movies where a woman's raped and then this guy's like, I'm going to defend her. And then the movie becomes not about the woman anymore. It's about the defender. And I like those movies, but they lose a little bit of, what am I trying to say? They lose a little bit of their integrity. Not to be a complete jerk, but, it's less about the dealing with what happened to them, less drama, more action at that point. And I like both of them, but this one, actually feels like a drama. In fact, maybe a little bit too much drama at times. It almost feels like just kind of a brutal Lifetime movie. And when the violence happens, it's pretty graphic in here. Nicholas Worth plays one of the rapists, of course, and he gives a tremendous performance. He always does. Yeah, if you guys don't know Nicholas Worth, he's one of my favorite character actors. He always played like a thug. His most memorable roles are probably from Don't Answer the Phone, where he plays Kurt Smith, I believe. Kirk Smith, the Strangler in that. He's a really nasty killer. And Paulie from Darkman, but he pops up in tons of stuff like Swamp Thing, Hell Comes to Frog Town, Blood Dolls. He's in numerous movies. He's always excellent. City Heat. He plays one of the rapists, and his role is very good. And of course, he gets castrated, and and he just I know I shouldn't be laughing, but his scenes almost kind of played for laughs at a time like that. that deep bellowing voice and whatnot. But yeah, I like this movie. I like what happens at the end, and it does kind of tackle the idea of losing oneself in all this and becoming a monster and whatnot. It's a solid movie. I'd like to see it get a release. It deserves a nice release here. Like I said, I don't think it's ever had a DVD release anywhere. It feels very like TV movie at times, but it also feels a little gritty, and it pushes boundaries a little bit. And like I said, when the violence happens, there's a couple scenes in here that are fairly graphic. And a little bothersome, to be honest. But I like the lead female in the movie, too. She's tough as nails. She kicks ass. But, this is one of the movies that I'd like to see get a Blu-ray release or DVD release. And I think that it would look a little bit better cleaned up and maybe hear some insight on the movie, the filmmakers and whatnot. But The Ladies Club, I really like it.
An innocent teenager, violated. A devoted mother, violated. A trained policewoman, and still she was violated.
He's gonna give you something you ain't never, ever gonna forget.
I was raped, and I don't feel like I'll ever be the same again.
Violated.
You ever been to a rape trial?
May I suggest, Miss Taylor, is that you invited them into your home.
Even my husband thought it was my fault.
She kept saying she wanted it harder. Harder.
The laws don't protect us, and I don't believe they ever will.
You bastard! Dirty leg bastard!
7 who were violated are taking charge of their lives again.
What we're doing is extremely dangerous, and if we get caught, we'll go to prison.
The risks. The danger.
What's the matter? You afraid of me?
The violence.
God damn it! How could you do such a thing?
I will not stand by and let other men like Lair do their sins without being punished.
Don't tell me you never thought that somebody might get killed.
Violated. It's shocking, but it is justice.
Okay, the pick a movie this week was by Tim Hayes. He's been requesting this one for years. Not years, but maybe a year. But Beyond the Valley of the Dolls from Criterion. You know what? I had never seen this movie. In fact, I'd never seen a Russ Meyer movie. I know it's bad, right? Russ Meyer did so many things faster. Pussycat, Kill. He has a bunch of movies on his resume. And you know what? A lot of them never been released on Blu-ray. This is one of the only ones. There is a movie called Valley of the Dolls, but this one's kind of unrelated. This, in fact, is kind of a spoof of Valley of the Dolls, which is basically about Hollywood taking over one's souls and losing one's soul and being exploited by Hollywood. This was made in 1970. This was written by Roger Ebert and directed by Russ Meyer, who is an infamous kind of exploitation filmmaker who served in World War II. He cut his nails and learned how to make films by being a photographer in World War II and making industrial videos. And the man had an obsession with large breasts. That's why there's a lot of boundary pushing in this movie. What's cool about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, but it's also kind of a little bit juggling. At the time, I bet people looked at this as progressive, and people are like, yeah, they're showing these characters in a film. But now I think they would look at it as the complete opposite. I think they would see the characters, the lesbianism and the transsexual people in the movie as being negatively looked at or having negative outcomes in the movie as something that is... a negative, response to them. But at the time, man, this movie probably was more progressive than a lot of other movies. It has some familiar faces in here for me. It has Jack Napier in here, and Harrison Page, who pops up in Leijenhorst, which I reviewed a little bit ago, and he's very young in here. This is a very strange movie. Of course, we have this this female band, so there's a music element to it. So we have this musical stuff going on. All the musical numbers are great. They're fun. It's a hippie movie. There's lots of hippies, lots of sex, lots of drugs, lots of nudity, and whatnot. So we have this girl band. They basically go to Hollywood to meet one of their aunts and realize that she has some money coming. She gets tied in with these, sophisticated LA actors and musicians and all these people in the movie. And there's tons of zany characters, tons of weird characters. The guy who's basically running the place, he's this big record producer. He is this very, very strange guy. He is so weird, and I love his performance. He is, back in the day when they would portray every homosexual character as like just evil or kind of like cunning, evil, like kind of like Fire and Ice, like that character. And I always like those characters. I know those, you know, just like, I know it's probably negative, but I'd rather see that evil homosexual character than the overly flamboyant kind of girly character that they're just basically laughing at the whole time, if that makes any sense. I guess neither are probably, you know, positive to people, but hey, it was 1970, so yeah. But it tackles a lot of issues, like it has a lesbian relationship in here, it has a abortion in here, it has a lot of laughs and a lot of zaniness, and I wouldn't call it campiness because the weirdness is kind of on purpose. And like they said in a lot of the features on here, these were two outsiders, Russ Meyer and Roger Ebert, writing and making this movie. 20th Century Fox produced it, so it had this element that it was a big budget, weird movie because we had outsiders making it, laughing at Hollywood and making a satire of Hollywood and not exactly knowing how it worked at the same time. So we have these characters playing it completely straight but being very, very weird at the same time, and all sorts of crazy things happening. There's an end closeout narration that is just absurd, to be honest. It's just like, what's going on? Again, it's one of these movies that they said at the time, people were just like, what is this? I don't get this. Is this supposed to be funny? Is this supposed to be serious? And it's a unique movie, to be honest. I liked watching it. I enjoyed watching it. It gets violent at the end. It gets crazy at the end. It's one of these deals where it opens up with a scene from what happens towards the end of the movie. I don't know if people like that. I know Moods from 22 Shots of Moods and Horror Podcast hates that. He can't stand that. But I think it works in this one, in this context. I enjoyed the music. It's catchy. I love when they go to the party scenes and you see all these zany, weird characters going on. It's a mixture of you know, a bunch of different things going on here. And the reveal here definitely inspired some other movies, to be honest. I don't want to, maybe a trauma movie that's pretty popular that hasn't got a Blu-ray release. I'll leave it at that, and then that without spoiling too much. The Blu-ray, it looks great. It's Criterion. It looks very good. There's interviews with a bunch of the people involved with the movie. I love seeing that. John Waters is on here talking about the movie. I love seeing that. A lot of other people on here, filmmakers and creative types, talking about how the movie inspired them and how much they love it. And I really dig that. And John Waters is really fun to listen to. He's one of those interesting guys that he even points out that stuff, like the transsexual stuff. And he's just like, I don't think they would like that nowadays. And there's no doubt they wouldn't. I mean, people don't like much of anything nowadays, no matter who they are. People just seem, they're just ready to get mad about something. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the release. You know, I'm going to check out some more Russ Meyer stuff, but this one was really, really cool. And lots of skin, lots of good-looking people not wearing many clothes, and that should get you in there to watch it. There's good music, there's good, you know, good skin, and lots of laughs, you know, lots of good things going on. There's some gore in here too. There's some dramatic moments, but it's great. It's one of a kind. It's full. It's one of these deals where it's full of zany, weird characters, and I dig that stuff for sure.
Recently, 20th Century Fox had two great ideas: to make a film called Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and to get Russ Meyer to write, produce, and direct it. This is Russ Meyer, 240 pounds of creative energy. For years, he's been making very moving pictures for very little money. Yet there was something about his films, like The Immoral Mr. Tease and Vixen, that sparked the public's imagination. That something was Meyer's infallible eye for picking beautiful women.
Look on up at the bottom.
This time, they've really gone beyond the Valley of the Dolls, with Russ Meyer supplying a dazzling selection of traveling companions and brand new stars. Dolly Reed as Kelly, the singer, Cynthia Myers as Casey, the swinger, Marcia McBroom as Pet, the soul sister, Edie Williams as Ashley, the superstar, Erica Gavin as Roxanne, the sensualist, and Phyllis Davis as Susan, the insider.
I guess I was just too young to really understand a sweet talking candy man.
Beyond the Valley of the Dolls has all the elements. Drama, love, mystery, music. But the most important element is the guy who put it all together, Russ Meyer. This is not a sequel. There has never been anything like it.
Let's get into the drawing. Somebody wanted me to dump this bag out and make sure whose names are in here. Should I do it, guys? Let me know if you guys really want me to do it to make sure everybody's name's in there, and I will do it next time for you guys. But I keep adding you in there. If you ever want to have me pick a movie, let me know. Who is it? Jonathan Bludgeon won last time. He picked Hell of the Living Dead by Bruno Mattei, so that'll be the next week. I've seen so many Bruno Mattei movies lately. But if you ever want to enter, leave a comment on the Screaming Toilet page, a Facebook page, a YouTube page. I'll get you in there. And if you haven't been drawn out yet, you're still in here if you entered. Let's see what we got. Who's coming out this time? Buzzworthy. There you go. Buzzworthy. Let me know what you want me to watch, and you'll have to re-enter if you want back in the baggie. Okay, let's get into the Q&A here. What do we got here? Nick, a bunch of questions by Nick, because I missed last week, so he has tons more. Has any horror movie ever given you nightmares or alternatively inspired you for one of your short films? I mean, movies have probably given me nightmares, like particularly when I was younger, like Nightmare on Elm Street. Everybody had the Freddy nightmares, stuff like that. And Jacob's Ladder always scared me. I'm sure I had nightmares from that one. Basically, probably from its editing techniques and stuff. Inspired you for one of... Yeah, lots of horror movies have inspired me to make my shorts. Brainbusters, the short and Slimy Little Bastards, was definitely inspired by David Cronenberg. That was for sure inspired by Cronenberg. And my little monster shorts, little creature ones, are ghoulies, man. Ghoulies all day long. Why do you think people of color or gay people are regulated to cannon fodder in horror films or always portrayed as stereotypes? That's a good question. And I think that nowadays if you see a super stereotypical African-American character, you're just like, really? Like, I was watching this slasher movie. I can't remember what it was called. The Butchers. And I think it was called that. And they had this African-American woman who was just a straight, like, 1970s stereotype. And I was like, are we still doing this? Is this supposed to be, like, satirical? Or are you guys serious? Is this written in the 70s? What's going on? Like, I almost felt embarrassed for the movie. But I don't know. I think that people are more comfortable when they, with homosexual characters, I'll say, like, if they see them, like I said, as, like, the evil, like, flamboyant, like, kind of evil, powerful gay one, or, like, the girly, flamboyant character, I mean, I don't know. They become almost like jokes in the movie, or, you know, cliches, and I don't particularly like seeing that in a serious movie, especially. I don't get offended by it when I see, like, you know, stereotypes in movies, especially old movies. That's just how movies were. You got to take it with it how it is. Like, if you watch like something like Rio Bravo, and you see, like, the Hispanic character is just, like, played as a stereotype, but he's never played in a negative light, just a stereotype. Stuff like that, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, I can watch a movie and see the time frame, but like newer movies, they almost try to make up for the stereotypes that a lot of them will do, and they'll just make these characters like perfect angels or whatnot. And I just would like to see people portrayed as real people no matter what. You know what I mean? White, straight, gay, black, whatever. I just want to see them portrayed as realistic people in a lot of movies that are like serious dramas and whatnot. I don't need to have people tiptoe around something because they're scared to offend somebody. I just need to show reality, you know what I mean? Sometimes people will come across like they're being negative towards somebody, but at times, you know, people misconstrue things. Like, they misconstrued a lot of stuff in movies for sure. Like, if you were to see something that a racist character in a movie, or a character that was a chauvinist piece of crap in a movie, people will be like, well, this filmmaker's chauvinist, this person's racist. But having those characters in your movie doesn't make you that. I mean, you're portraying these characters. People are like that in real life, and you should, you know, have them in your movie if it calls for it. It's very complicated, and it's very subjective to people. You know, I mean, sometimes they'll watch something and they'll be like, you know, this bothers me, but it won't bother the next person because they haven't lived the same life. It's very complicated. Have you ever stayed or shot a movie on a location that was supposedly haunted? Did you actually experience something? I don't know. Trying to think. Everywhere you go, every building that's old, people are like, it's haunted. 95% of the time, people are just trying to put some excitement in their life. But I'm not very superstitious when it comes to that stuff. I think that the Collingwood Art Center is supposed to... Is it the Collingwood Art Center? Or, yeah, it's supposed to be haunted. I never got scared there. I never seen any ghost, but it's a big old building, so... Any horror stories or haunted places where you live? Like I said, the Collingwood Center. Hell, I was even at Gettysburg when I was a little kid, and I didn't see anything, but it was cool. There's got to be if there's bad juju, it's in Gettysburg. So many people died there. But any horror stories or haunted places? There used to be this haunted orphanage in the Maumee area. They tore it down. But we went there, and I think I was in high school, and we went in the building with flashlights and everything. And, you know, I'm not superstitious, but that place was creepy, and there was a lot of weird noises, and, you know, I was a little bit scared, to be honest. If you lived in Western times, which side of the law would you be on? What would be your Western moniker? Deadly Dave, Perilous Parker? I don't know. I would let, if I was a criminal or what, I would just let, you can't pick your own name. The people that always pick their own name never get called that. They're always lame, like, call me this, call me that. It's like, no, I'm calling you. They just make fun of you. Like, they're like, if you're like, call me Perilous Parker, they're like, all right, Pee Wee Parker. They make something up for you, and they would just make fun of you. You know, you can't pick your own name. You don't pick your own nickname. That's a no-no. That's etiquette. You don't pick your own nickname. You see, like, MMA fighters who pick their own nickname. It's like, I want to be Pitbull. It's like, there's 30 Pitbulls. I'm a Pitbull. It's like, come on, man. Stop it. Stop picking your own name. It's not cool. But, so I don't know what my moniker would be. Probably just my name. If you lived in Western times, I have no idea. Depends. If I had the same life I had, I probably would be on the good side. But you never know, you know. Actually, I probably would have got killed when I was in high school age because I probably would have partied too much and offended somebody and got shot. Say God and the Devil came over for movie night. Which film would you show to appease them both? The Wild Bunch. I think that it shows there's a lot of bloods in there to, you know, appease the devil, but they also, it's funny because it's like such like hard men and bad men at times, but there's a certain loyalty in there at times. And I think that they could show the suffering in man and I don't think it's doing the right thing necessarily, but doing what they think is right, and at the end that sacrifice they make for Angel and also kind of themselves, you know. And it's just, that's the one I would pick. What makes a good DVD Blu-ray review? What should be covered? Story, image, sound, score, and music, bonus features. How many words can the reviewer use for stating their opinion? How subjective, objective should one be? That's a lot right there. Let me get into this. What makes a good DVD Blu-ray review? What should be covered? For me, I think that they should talk a little bit about the picture. I'm not perfect about the picture. I'm pretty bad about picture and sound because it's not my expertise when it comes to... A lot of guys will be like, well, the sound is a little shaky in these parts. The quality in video dips here and there. It's just something that I'm a little weak at, and I'm willing to admit that. And I apologize for that, but I like to make sure I cover the features. If it's an old movie, I like to talk about the features. I like to say, is it worth, you know, buying it if you have a DVD or Blu-ray already? If you have a Blu-ray and then you want the new features, I think that the features should be covered. If it's an old movie, a release of an old movie, the features should be covered, to be honest. Talking about the features and talking about the movie and whatnot. The score is always important, but here's the problem. You like to talk about the things that stand out to you. If you watch a good movie but the score is rather lackluster, or it just doesn't speak to you, or it's just okay, you don't mention it because it's not worth mentioning. But what really stands out to you is really what you'll mention. You'll give the negatives and positives that stand out to you. A lot of the other things are just completely flat, and when they're completely flat to you or they don't stand out to you, are they really worth mentioning? I'm just hard to say. I mean, there'd be so many sounds okay, soundtracks okay, but I love this. You know, I'd rather talk about the positives and negatives and be fair on them all. How many words can your reviews use for stating their own opinion? It depends, you know. I prefer to get straight to the point. I don't particularly like talking about myself. There's a lot of reviewers out there that will start, I came home on this date and watched this. They paint the picture for you, how their life's doing it. They kind of play characters into it. I like to get straight to the point. I like to get to the review. You don't care about me. I don't blame you. You just want to hear what's on the damn DVD. And sometimes I don't do that well. So I just like getting to the point, you know. I'm that interesting. The movie's interesting. So... how subjective, objective should one be? Sometimes I always try to be subjective because I know it's my opinion, whatnot, but you should be objective to a certain point. Like, if the sound's terrible. Like, if it's absolutely terrible and stands out. Like, last week, Escort Service Tales, like, I heard some rattling on the sound. That's objective. That's bad sound. That's just how it goes. But subjective, you know, subjective could be, I don't like how this character's story arc unfolds. Because I don't find it realistic. And somebody could say, well, the movie's not going for realism here, and I like how this character's story arc folds because this happened, and you can understand it. Your brain works different. So you should have a mixture of both. And I guess certain people have certain styles and differences, so it all depends. In a word way, it depends what you're going for. I like the review books. I'm going back to the previous question about how many words. I like the shorter reviews sometimes. But if they're going to go into the movie in depth and talk about it and analyze it and do film critique more so on, you know, a film analyst, then that can be as long as you want to write. But if it's just a straight kind of review, or, you know, I like to dip back and forth a little bit, mostly do film review of the release, and then I'll dive into certain things. Whatever, you know, stands out to me at the time is what I go for. You know, I just go off the cuff because my brain is never stopping because I have ADHD, as you guys probably know. You know, but that's just how I work. I think other people work differently, obviously. But hopefully that answered your question. It was a mouthful of Greek salad. Day of the Dead. I'm sorry. But let's hop into the update. Okay, let's hop into the update. Somebody asked me what I got on the Criterion sale, and last week I showed some of it. Here's the rest of it. Dead Man by Jim Jarmusch with Johnny Depp, Alfred Molina, Crispin Glover, Robert Mitchum, Lance Hendrickson, Michael Wincott. The list is endless. Gary Farmer, Billy Bob Thornton. This was a really great Western. Black and white. Looks great. It's really cool stuff. You know, I'm not the biggest Johnny Depp fan, but he's perfect in that one. Great movie. Been a while since I've seen it. We have Love Streams by John Cassavetes. You know, I recently watched one of his films, and I wanted to check out some more. This is, like, the only one Criterion did that's not in the box set, so yeah. Cool stuff. And then we got the John Cassavetes box set. 5 films in here, including A Woman Under the Influence, and the rest of them right there. Shadows, Faces, Killing of a Chinese Bookie, 2 versions. So that's pretty cool. Opening night. Yeah, you know, I wasn't familiar with this film. So I knew him as an actor from Rosemary's Baby and The Dirty Dozen and The Fury. So yeah, this is really cool. I'm excited to check that out. Then we got one from Artsploitation, Perfect Obedience. Artsploitation always releases these movies that are really well made, but they just like tackle something that shouldn't. It's like, should this even be a movie? But this involves a priest and whatnot. It's probably very bothersome. Even the cover is just... I collect kind of the Artsploitation movies, or check almost all of them out if I get the chance to. But that looks pretty terrible. Just miserable, you know, obviously, about pedophilia and stuff. Probably very uncomfortable to watch, similar to the movie The Treatment. And the last of my Kino sale came in, The Crucible, with Daniel Day-Lewis, Winona Ryder. It's been a while since I watched this. I think I had to watch it for school. And, you know, every movie you're forced to watch for school, you're like, this sucks! But then I always thought about it. I always remembered it, and I always loved Daniel Day-Lewis's speech at the end about his word and whatnot. I kind of wanted to see it again. Then we have Flesh and Blood by Paul Verhoeven with Tom Berenger and Rutger Hauer in it. Yeah, never seen this one. I think Brian James is in this movie too, but yeah, looking forward to checking that out. Love that cover art, by the way. Then we have Chosen Survivors. I had this old DVD, the double feature with Something Earth Dies Screaming, which is actually a pretty cool movie too. But Chosen Survivors, this is a cool movie, a post-apocalyptic movie about a bunch of survivors in this weird shelter. I like it. It's been a while since I've seen it, but cool stuff. Alex Cord's in here. Some other Lincoln Kilpatrick's in here as well. Some other familiar faces. We have Spellbinder. I believe this is a Kino Scorpion release. Not seen this. Don't know much about it. Know it's kind of like a thriller. But yeah, wanted to check it out. And another one, the Serpent Slayer. I think there's Jeff Fahey in here. Scorpion again, I think, Kino. Or is it a Code Red? This is a Code Red, actually. I know that, you know, Evil Cats, Jeff Fahey. I'm in. That's from the Kino sale as well. And last is a DVD, On the Yard, with John Hurd. It's a prison movie. Not seen it. But yeah, I like prison movies, and I like Scorpion, so why not? Wanted to check it out, and I heard many people talk about it. But yep, that's the update. Now back to the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the updates. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, you guys have a good one.